I want to talk to you about something most people never recognize when it happens. It's not dramatic, it doesn't arrive with applause or a milestone notification. In fact, if you're not paying attention, you might cross it quietly and only understand it years later. It's the point where your invested money becomes capable of carrying itself to the finish line. Not because you stopped contributing, not because you suddenly became wealthy, but because time, structure, and compounding have taken over the heavy lifting. My name is Anderson, and after years of observing how money shapes not just accounts but behavior, I've come to believe this threshold matters more than the final retirement number people obsess over. Most individuals are focused on hitting a massive figure at 60 or 65, imagining that's when freedom begins. But the real psychological shift happens much earlier, at the moment your current balance left untouched would still grow into enough for retirement through the quiet force of compounding. Let's think about this clearly. If long-term diversified investments compound at around 7% annually over decades, money roughly doubles every 10 years. That's not optimism, that's historical math over long time horizons. So if you're 35 with $400,000 invested, that money alone could become $800,000 at 45, roughly $1,600,000 at 55, and over $3 million by 65 without you adding another dollar. That realization changes the emotional tone of your life. Before reaching that point, your future feels dependent on constant effort. You save because you must, you invest because you must, you tolerate situations because you must. Every paycheck feels necessary. Every setback feels threatening. Your mind stays in low-level vigilance, calculating risk and bracing for disruption. But once your investments reach a size where time alone can complete the mission, the pressure softens. You may still work hard, you may still invest, but you're no longer operating from fear of insufficiency. You're operating from preference. That distinction reshapes everything. Scarcity compresses your thinking. It makes small expenses feel large and forces you to focus on immediate trade-offs. Stability expands your thinking. It allows you to shift attention towards structural decisions, where you live, what career trajectory you pursue, how you allocate assets, how you protect your health, how you design your time. You begin thinking in decades instead of months. And that expansion of mental bandwidth is one of the most undervalued returns on investment. When your financial base becomes self-propelling, you also gain something subtle but powerful: leverage. Not arrogance, not recklessness, but calm leverage. You negotiate differently because you're not negotiating from desperation. You evaluate career moves with clarity because your survival is no longer tied to a single income source. You can walk away if alignment disappears. Even if you never exercise that option, knowing you have it changes your posture. People sense the difference between someone who needs the outcome and someone who chooses the outcome. That composure compounds in ways spreadsheets don't measure, but I need to caution you carefully here. This threshold is not a reward. It is not permission to inflate your life in ways that quietly reset the finish line. Many people reach a substantial milestone, $500,000, $700,000, even $1 million invested, and immediately expand fixed expenses. A larger mortgage, a more expensive vehicle, permanent lifestyle upgrades that feel justified after years of discipline. And while upgrades aren't inherently wrong, every new fixed obligation increases the amount your portfolio must ultimately sustain. Math doesn't care about emotion. Higher baseline expenses mean a higher required retirement number. The threshold works only if it's protected. Treat it as a foundation, not a trophy. Every major purchase carries an opportunity cost measured not just in dollars, but in years of freedom. A car payment is not just transportation, it is compounding. A luxury home is not just comfort, it is an extended obligation. When you understand this deeply, your decision-making becomes calmer and more strategic. You stop reacting to what others are doing and start designing according to your own long timeline. Something else happens internally as you approach this threshold. Your identity evolves. You stop seeing yourself as someone trying to build wealth and begin seeing yourself as someone who has built stability. Delayed gratification no longer feels like deprivation, it feels like evidence of self-control. You trust your own discipline. And self-trust, once established, affects far more than money. It affects how you approach health, relationships, career risk, and long-term planning. You realize you are capable of committing to a difficult plan and following through. That realization is quietly transformative. The goal, then, is not merely to accumulate a large number, but to reach inevitability, the point where your future is structurally supported by time itself. When you cross into inevitability, your questions change. Instead of asking, "Will I be okay?" you begin asking, "How do I want to live?" Instead of scrambling to maximize every dollar, you begin optimizing for meaning, autonomy, and flexibility. Work becomes something you engage in intentionally, not something you cling to out of fear. Investing becomes acceleration, not rescue. Even market volatility feels different because you understand that short-term swings are small disturbances within a multi-decade trajectory. This is what people misunderstand when they chase flashy income increases without building early capital. Income matters, yes, but capital plus time is what creates inevitability. The earlier you build a meaningful base, the smaller it needs to be. Time is the multiplier most people underestimate because its effects are invisible in daily life. Compounding is quiet. It doesn't impress anyone at dinner conversations, but over 20 or 30 years, it becomes overwhelming. That is why the threshold is so powerful. It marks the moment when time overtakes effort. And once time carries more weight than effort, anxiety fades in ways that are difficult to describe but easy to feel. You'll notice you check accounts less frequently. You'll notice negotiations feel steadier. You'll notice decisions reflect patience rather than urgency. The world remains uncertain, but your position within it feels anchored. And anchoring is the true form of wealth. I don't want you to misunderstand this as an argument to stop investing once you reach the threshold. Continuing to invest accelerates flexibility and widens options. But reaching the point where you no longer need to invest for retirement because compounding alone will get you there is a psychological milestone few discuss openly. It's where effort shifts from mandatory to optional. It's where urgency transitions into composure. It's where survival mode quietly gives way to growth mode. If you design your financial life intentionally, protect your base, and respect the mathematics of time, there will come a moment when your future is no longer fragile. And when that happens, you won't feel euphoria, you'll feel calm. And that calm will influence your choices more powerfully than any market return ever could. So, as you move forward, focus less on chasing impressive numbers and more on building inevitability. Protect your compounding. Guard your optionality. Make large decisions carefully and small decisions without obsession. One day you will look back and realize the most important financial milestone was not the final balance at retirement, but the day your money became capable of finishing the journey without constant supervision. That is the secret threshold, and when you reach it, you won't need anyone to tell you. You'll simply know because the pressure will be gone. My name is Anderson, and if you build patiently and think in decades instead of days, your future self will quietly thank you for choosing design over reaction and stability over display. Thanks for listening. I'll see you in the next video.